Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
It is Wednesday night, and we are live, and it is time for Friends and Fiction. And I have to say, I love watching The Hive from Vancouver. Hello.
I do too.
I never mention it, but I love seeing that in the opening. It's so much fun. Yeah. So it's time for Friends and Fiction. Let's get rolling. I am Patti Callahan Henry.
I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
I'm Kristin Harmel.
And I'm Mary Kay Andrews.
And this is Friends and Fiction, 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support indie bookstores, authors, librarians, and readers. Tonight, we are so excited to welcome our friend Ariel Lawhon, author of her newest one coming out in a couple days called The Frozen River.
Ooh, we're so excited. But first, just a quick reminder to check out all the fun things going on in our Friends and Fiction community at friendsandfiction.com. There you'll find links to our bookshop.org page where our books and books from all of our guests, which is a lot of guests, are available at a discount, to the Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa, and to our weekly email newsletter sign up.
You're on mute, Kristin. Such a pro.
It would help if you could hear me. That would be good. You'll also find a link to our Friends and Fiction Writers Block podcast, a new episode of which drops every Friday. On last Friday's episode, Megan Ron talked with Isaac Fitzgerald about his New York Times bestselling memoir and essays, Dirtbag, Massachusetts, which is now out in paperback. And coming this Friday, Megan Ron will be talking with Stephanie Land, the author of the book that inspired the Netflix series Made, about her latest book, Class, a memoir of motherhood, hunger, and higher education, which is the latest GMA book club pick. You can listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or you can listen directly on our website at friendsandfiction.com. But regardless, you can find more information there.
Yeah, over on the book club's Facebook page, the group is reading Christmas Presents by Lisa Unger, which I loved. You can join them for that live online author discussion on Monday, December 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And don't miss their happy hour with Ron Block and a special guest tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
We don't even know who this special guest is, so got to go tune in to find out. There are so many fun things going on with the Friends and Fiction community, and we have one more surprise for you tonight. We have been so excited to share this with all of you because you're always one of the first to know. Our very own Kristy Woodson Harvey is going to be revealing the cover to her June 25th release, A Happier Life, available for pre-order now. Hint, hint.
Pre-order her book now, damn it.
See, I whispered it and she shouts it. That's the way we go around here. So, Kristy, what can you tell us about this amazing book before, which I have?
Yes, I don't even have one and you have one.
I can't show it because you haven't done the cover reveal yet.
Oh, good point.
Oh, that's right. Oh, duh. Okay. Well, I'm so excited about this book. So it's my first book ever set in Beaufort, North Carolina, where I live, which I just have to tell you right off the bat because it was so fun to get to write a book about Beaufort. But it is about a woman named Keaton who discovers that her mother and her uncle have never sold their childhood home in Beaufort, North Carolina. She knows that her grandparents died in an accident before she was born, but she has absolutely no idea that, you know, all these remnants of their life are still sitting there. And of course, she thinks this is bananas. And so when her mother asks her to go to Beaufort to put the house on the market, she doesn't agree at first, but then does for a lot of reasons that you find out in the book. And as soon as she gets there, she gets involved in a lot of town things, because that's what you do when you move to Beaufort. And she meets lots of friends who know lots of things about her grandparents. And so as she is getting to hear their stories and she's going through all of their possessions in this house that has literally been untouched since 1976, she starts to realize that the stories that she's been told about her grandparents her whole life might not have been true. And so then in the other point of view, we get to see Rebecca St. James. Everyone calls her Bex, who is a fabulous hostess, which I just love about her. And she's known for that in her town. And we get to see her true story unravel from 1935 until that fateful night in 1976, when we get to find out what actually happened at that house on Sunset Lane.
Ooh,
That's it.
I love it.
Anyway, I'm super, super excited. So, Sean, let's show them the cover.
It's so
Love it.
awesome.
Oh, Kristy, are you so happy with it? Look how big your name is on the
love it.
cover. Look at that. It's huge.
I love it. I love it. And, you know, we went back and forth a lot of different directions on this cover. And I love this one. I think it's great. And the funny thing is, wait, Patti, hold it up again. So it's like, obviously like a cartoon, but if you are on the Rachel Carson Reserve, which is right across from my house, and you are sitting there and you're looking back at Beaufort, like that's exactly what it looks like. I mean, it doesn't look like cartoonish, but like that looks exactly like, you know, so that's really fun. So every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that's my favorite place in the world. So
I'm just going to do this all night. So Ariel, what do you think?
Kristy, how does it feel to know that you're writing about your actual town? Like, are you feeling good about that? Like, are you feeling excited to have your neighbors and friends there reading?
Okay. So I'm excited about it, but also like, you know, you're writing a book. So I tried really hard. I didn't want to like just cram things in to cram them in, you know? And I'm like, oh, there are a few of my favorite places that like aren't in this book. So I'm going to put together like my definitive Beaufort travel guide to go along with the book, so that people can like kind of get to see all my favorite places, even if they didn't make it into the book. But it was really fun because I got to put, not a ton, but I got to put like a fair amount of, you know, the history of Beaufort and Carteret County into this book in the 1935 to 1976 part. So when you're reading about that fabulous concert at the casino from the dancing couple from New York City, like that was real. You know, everything that's in that book, I do want people to know that everything that's in the past sections is something that really happened. I did take a couple liberties, like the year that the Old Homes tour started and some things like that, but I tell you in the book. But for the most part, it's pretty much what it was. So it was really fun to get to learn a little more.
Meg, Jess
awesome.
put in the chat, you're to Beaufort as Ellen is to Nantucket.
I love that. It's
Yeah,
so true. No, that's amazing. Well, Kristy, congratulations.
Thanks, Meg.
This is awesome. Well, all of you listening, make sure to let us know in the comments what you think of the cover. We're excited to hear what you think.
Unless you don't like it, and then just keep
and
it
then
to
just
yourself.
don't tell us. Only good things. No, I'm just kidding. All right. This is so exciting. And this is a night full of announcements, because we can also announce that, drum roll, please, Patti. All right. The beautiful drum roll as usual.
Thank
the
you.
2024 Friends and Fiction subscription box is available from our good friends at Oxford Exchange.
Yay!
Yeah, we just literally got it
Under
going.
the wire. I texted them from soccer at like 5:45, and I was like, don't update your scripts. We have a link.
Kristy did all the hard work. So in this year's box, you will receive My Summers at the Saint in May, Kristy's A Happier Life in June, and you have the option, and we hope you will take us up on that, to order the paperback of Patti's A Secret Book of Laura Lee and the paperback of Kristin's A Paris Daughter. All books will come signed and with a fun, special Friends and Fiction gift you can only get with a subscription box. We'll be posting and pinning the post to the top of the Friends and Fiction Facebook page. It's the ultimate holiday gift, we think.
Exactly.
I feel like
We're
that's like
usually
how
right.
many woodchucks can a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck?
Yeah.
We'll be
Look at that.
posting and pinning the post. Posting and pinning the
Sorry.
post.
Sorry.
That's awesome. All right. We have so much to look forward to. And I know people have been asking about the box. So I know I'm going to be getting it as a gift for a couple people. So without further ado, let's move on to our guest, Ariel Lawhon.
Ariel is a critically acclaimed New York Times best-selling author of historical fiction. Ariel's books have been translated into numerous languages and have been library reads, One Book, One Country read, Indie Next, Costco, Amazon Spotlight, and Book of the Month Club selections.
Ariel lives with her husband and 4 sons outside of Nashville, where she splits her time between the grocery store and the baseball fields.
I love that.
I love
In
that.
there,
Yeah.
In there.
I feel that, and I only have one. I don't
Yeah,
know how she does this.
We don't know.
Her new novel, The Frozen River, is set to be released on December 5th. In a starred review, Kirkus called it a vivid, exciting page turner from one of our most interesting authors of historical fiction.
And I agree. And the book is an NPR Best Book of the Year. It got the trifecta, a Publisher Weekly star, a Booklist star, a Kirkus star, and as a bonus, the Book of the Month Club. And there's another huge announcement coming soon. So, Sean, can you bring Ariel on so we can talk to her and not just about her?
Hey,
Hi,
Ariel.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Always.
You are a Friends in Fiction community favorite. I think this is maybe your third time visiting.
third.
I know, it's so exciting. So I remember when you first started writing this book, and it has been quite the haul. And we're going to talk about all of it because I think this book is extraordinary. Let us get set in the book. We are in Maine. It's very cold. It's winter. It is 1789. And the Kennebec, am I saying that right? Kennebec?
Yes.
Kennebec River freezes over, and a man is found entombed in the ice. Hello to the opening of the novel. Then healer and midwife Martha Ballard, our lost to time heroine, is summoned to examine the body and determine the cause of death. When it is discovered that her diary is a record of every birth and death in the town, her family and everything she holds dear is put under a microscope. So although a mystery starts the novel, it is about so much more than a mystery. Tell us what you believe in Friends in Fiction Faction. The book is really about at its heart.
Well, I like to say that it is a murder mystery and it is a rape trial. That is the overarching plot of the story, but it's really about marriage and motherhood and a woman in midlife. And those 3 themes, marriage, motherhood, and midlife, really take on momentum as the book goes on.
Oh, you're about to go on the road and you have got it down.
I've been
It is not my turn, but can I ask you like a super brief question?
Yes.
So when you were writing this book, could you have said it's about marriage, motherhood, and midlife? Or is it like in reflecting back on it that you know that's what it's about?
Absolutely reflecting back. I never know what my books are about when I'm actually writing them. I am
Same.
in the weeds.
Makes me feel better.
Yep. Yeah. No, I always have that problem too. Like it's you're so immersed in it that you kind of can't see the forest for the trees, right? It's only afterwards. And I always find that when we go on the road too, people's reactions to the book help tell you what the book's about.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
And it
Absolutely.
shifts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like that
absolutely.
first really great interview that you do, and you're like, oh, that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's because we can never read our own books, right? We can never have
Yes.
a relationship to them that a reader does.
Yep.
It's just different and it's apart from the book. So when somebody reads it and they get to enjoy it as a reader, they see it in ways that we never can.
That
Absolutely.
is so true. And I think people
Very
imprint
astute.
their Yeah, and I think people imprint their own life experiences on the book too. It's just a different experience for everybody. But anyhow, so Ariel, in your author's note, you talk about how your parents collected strangers when you were a child and how you now collect people in different ways. You collect them from the library, from magazines, from the far corners of the internet. Your novels have brought to life so many fascinating people, from a missing judge in 1930 to the only woman to serve aboard a Zeppelin, to a Russian Grand Duchess, to the most decorated woman to serve in World War II, and now a renowned and nearly forgotten healer and midwife in the person of Martha Ballard. So, can you tell us a little bit about your inspiration behind this book? I think we've heard it's something about a magazine in a doctor's office.
Yes. So, fun story. I actually came up with this novel before any of my others, before I'd written any
What?
of my current published novels. I was pregnant with my 4th son, and I was in the doctor's office. I was about 5 months along, and I'd gone in for my monthly appointment, and my doctor was late. He got stuck at the hospital with this really tricky delivery, so I got stuck in his waiting room, and I kind of had two choices. I could wait it out, or I could reschedule and go home. But if I went home, I had to parent the other two. And since I had a sitter, I decided to stick it out. I don't know. It was just a break. I mean, you know how it is when you have 900 little kids. So I sat in that waiting room all afternoon, and I finished the book I brought with me. And then I went through all of the magazines in the office. And by the end, I was down to like this really scary pile of pamphlets, you know, the ones they put in the corner, and they're all telling you how you're going to die. But I just, dug through those pamphlets. And at the bottom, there was this little devotional. It was really common in doctor's offices in Texas at the time. And the devotional was called Our Daily Bread. So I opened it up to that day, August 4th, 2008. And there was the story of a midwife named Martha Ballard, who delivered over 1,000 babies in the course of her career, but never lost a mother in childbirth. And there I was, sitting in this doctor's office, pregnant, and I thought to myself, my doctor can't boast a record like that. But this woman lived in the late 1700s and did not have any of the benefits of modern medicine, and she never lost a patient. That's astonishing. And of course, all the little hairs stood up on the back of my neck, and I thought that would make a great novel. So I ripped the page out of the devotional, I stuck it in my purse, and I kid you not, my doctor walked in just a couple minutes later.
Oh, wow. That is incredible. Okay, but so that was so many years ago, though. Did you work on it at the time, or what made you pick it back up? And
I went home and I did a little bit of research, and I found that there were 2 books about Martha Ballard. One is this one called A Midwife's Tale. It's a biography of her, and then the other is her actual diary that is hundreds of pages long and completely desecrated by me now. And I thought, I need more time. And it was a big story. In hindsight, what I think I needed wasn't time necessarily. It was more experience as a mother under my belt. So I kept that idea. I kept that little scrap of paper. It's been in my files for 15 years. I still have it. It's in my notes for this book. And about 3 years ago, when it was time to write the next book, I went back to my file and I pulled out that little slip of paper, and I thought, I think I understand her a little bit better now.
Wow.
That was the beginning of COVID, and here we are.
That's
wow. What a story.
Well, this is such an immersive read during one long cold winter in Hallowell, Maine in 1789. From the moment that body was found frozen in the river to the stunning end, we feel as if we live on the Hallowell. From the rituals and the routines of early America to the yet unformed laws, from the homesteading process of owning land and a mill, the setting and time period is just fascinating. There must have been an incredible amount of research to make it feel so real to us. Now, you showed us Martha's diary and the other book. What do you think was the most important source of research for you? And did you go to Maine?
I wish I could have gone to Maine. I wrote this entirely during COVID.
Right.
The entire world was locked at home.
Yeah, we've all done that.
Yep.
I think I wrote 2 books during that time. And it's interesting. I do think the most important point of research was Martha's diary itself. And it's funny if you read it, which you probably won't. It's very long. It's very dry. There's one phrase that she repeats over and over and over the course of 30 years as she keeps this journal. And it's, I have been at home. So many days she'd finish out her diary for the day and she'd write, I have been at home. And I remember thinking, me too, Martha. Oh, I have been at home. But it was, you know how these things work out. It's fate. It's always fate.
Yeah.
I wrote this story at a time when I was at home, and I wrote it in a way that she lived her entire life, which was her family and her career were made out of whole cloth. She lived and worked with her family present. Her husband was there. Her kids were there. Her kids were assisting her sometimes, or her husband was with her when she went to a birth. There was no separation. And for the first time in my career, I experienced that writing this book. There was no separation between my work life and my family life. And in hindsight, I think it really helped me find her and tell her story, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Definitely does.
Yeah.
And it's such a, I think that's an experience that all four of us share with you, from writing early in the morning before the world awakened.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it was definitely different for sure.
Yeah.
Well, this book opens with a body found floating in the river, or frozen to be more accurate, as Patti mentioned. And although we rarely doubt why this man named James Burgess was killed, we sure do want to know who killed him and how. So part of the genius of the novel is this. We don't want someone to be blamed when they are innocent, and yet we aren't sure we want James's murderer to be caught, as James seemed to have sort of had it coming. Yeah. So you take us on an extraordinary journey to the truth, which leads me to wonder, did you always know who did it and what would happen to all those who were both suspected and innocent?
Ooh, that is a great question. And here's what I can tell you. Two things. I wanted to write a murder mystery, so I did. I love a good murder mystery. And in this particular instance, I did know who did it the whole time. Mm-hmm. But the way that I figured that out, because I'm a plotter, I have to know. I have to know. I do love surprises, but I want 5% of the book to be surprising.
Yeah.
Not 95.
I'm the same.
So when I was plotting this out and researching, I sat down and I was asking myself, I knew all of the characters, I knew their relationship to the story. And I thought, who is the one person that could not have done this? And I made a list of all the reasons of why people could or couldn't. And I found the one that absolutely could not have done it. And that's the person that I had do it in the end. I started at the end, with the impossible option, and I reverse engineered the whole book.
Ooh.
From that.
Wow.
I love it. That's awesome.
Incredible. Okay, so you've told us that you are a plotter, but you have about 6 or more suspenseful subplots in this novel, and all of them wind together for a breathtaking ending. So what was most useful about this process as you plotted this book and decided how to structure it to narrate Martha's story?
So every book has its complications, right? Every book has the things that are going to be easy, and every book has the things that are going to be really hard. And one of the really hard complications of this book is it takes place over 6 months, long winter. Everyone is trapped in this town. Automatically, that gives you the sense of claustrophobia, and it gives you the sense that not a lot is going on. It's winter and they're trapped there. Right. So again, in my reverse engineering brain, I knew that I had to have all of these other threads. There had to be other things happening beyond this whodunit of a murder mystery. So there's also a rape trial happening, because you learn very quickly, this is not a spoiler, that the man found dead in the ice deserves to die. He is one of 2 men accused of assaulting a woman several months earlier.
The preacher's wife.
Yes, the preacher's wife. And that is real. That all of that is true in real life. It's horrible, and it's true. There is, oh goodness, what else? There's a really fun thread. My favorite subplot in the entire novel is sort of this battle between midwifery and obstetrics. There's a new doctor who moves in, and he is convinced. He's 24 years old and he's just graduated from Harvard, and he is convinced that he knows better about delivering babies than a woman who's been doing it for 30 years.
Ooh.
There are all kinds of subplots happening, and all of them in their own way are related to this murder mystery. So they're all connected to the main story. And for me, that's the fun part, to sit there, and my sister calls it my murder wall in my office.
I love it.
It's where I have all the pictures and all the threads and the notes, and I'm connecting things. And the fun part for me is figuring that out and getting it straight in my head first, and then in my notes, and then finally on the page.
It's awesome.
That's great.
You know, I'm so spellbound by what you're saying. I forgot. Oh, I have the next question. I was surprised to learn how illiterate women were in the 1700s in rural America. You know, men believed that women didn't need to read. There are some that still feel that way. In the novel, Martha doesn't learn to read until she's married. Talk to us about Martha's need to keep a journal and how her ability to read changes her life and the life of this town.
Yeah, it's a great question. In the 1700s, most people were illiterate, but certainly most women. But if you think about it, somebody thought it was important that Martha learned to read. And the question I wanted to answer is who? We don't know in real life. So that part is fictional. The answer to that question is fictional. And she learns after she's married, and she begins to keep this journal. And I mean, she kept it faithfully for 30 years and passed it down to family member to family member to family member. And I wanted to know why. Why was it so important for her to keep this record of her life? And that's one of the things that I puzzle through in the novel, one of the motivations she has. But even then, taking a step farther back, had she not done that, she would have been completely lost to history.
Yeah.
She wrote herself into history with that journal.
I love that.
Her journal, her diary, is the only written record of that rape trial that happened. There is one court document that has the verdict, but Martha is the only person that bothered to write down what was said and how the trial went. She also happens to be the person who was called to attend the young pastor's wife after she was assaulted. So in her diary are also the entries of how she found the woman and what happened that night. But what that means is that when the rape trial happened, Martha became the primary witness in that trial itself. So she's not only recording what happens, but she's pulled into the actual trial.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, you write this from Martha's POV, this next passage, but it could be any of us. I have lost my train of thought. I cannot recall what I meant to find in the diary. This is the trouble faced by any woman who sets pen to paper in a busy household. I am never guaranteed the certainty of quiet, much less of a solid length of time to chase my thoughts and bind them together. Amen, sister. Women separated by time and space, and yet you tap into a universal longing to find that quiet to write. Did you feel as if you came to know Martha so intimately over the years that you thought about this novel that you could voice all of our own longings?
So, two-pronged answer, and it's contradictory. Yes, because I was reading her actual words. I mean, I was snooping on her life. When you read somebody's diary, that's what you're doing. You're just peeking over their shoulder. So yes, but also no, because if you read her diary, you will find one really interesting fact is that she does not editorialize at all. You will find little to no emotion. She records it almost with a clinical viewpoint. There are, I can probably count on one hand the number of passages in 30 years worth of diary entries where she expresses a strong emotion, anger or grief or fear. So that made finding her voice really, really difficult. I had to create her personality and her voice and her sort of way of being in the world from scratch. And
Mm.
that's the first time I've had to do that when writing about a historical character, because there's always been some source material, an
Mm.
autobiography or an interview or somebody else that knew that person commenting on who they were, but I had to find out who she was all on my own. So the Martha you read here is my creation.
That's awesome.
Was that nerve-wracking? Like, did you feel a lot of responsibility to do that?
A little bit, yes. So much time has passed that I don't necessarily live in fear of one of her grandchildren emailing me.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even mean that. Yeah, yeah.
But it was kind of fun. It was kind of
Yeah.
fun to create her. And honestly, I drew very heavily, like her personality, her voice, she's a woman of few words, but she has a lot of actions. So in a lot of ways, I wrote my mother in to
Oh,
her.
wow.
Ah.
Interesting.
Now, are there any living descendants? Do you know, Ariel?
Oh, I'm sure they are. I have not found them.
Mm.
People always ask me if I go find the living relatives or the friends, and I don't on purpose.
Yeah.
Partly
Yeah.
because I just don't want to send up a flare and say, hey, I'm doing this thing.
Right.
I like mine. But also I don't want to have to carry anyone else's expectations on.
Yes.
And at
Good
the
point.
end of the day, you know what it's like. Your name is on the cover of that book. And so I bear the responsibility for it. And I have to just let that be my own determination to do right by their memories and to tell their stories correctly without having external voices telling me what they ought to be.
Yeah.
That's important. Okay, well, there is so much to be said about women's roles in this novel and in the world, and this line was such a gut punch. I cry for every woman who lives, suffers, and dies by the mercurial whims of men. As much as things have changed, there are some things that stay the same. As you researched women, and especially women in medicine in this time, tell us how you incorporated all of this into the novel. In other words, the question always comes up in historical fiction: what's imagined, what's factual?
Yes. So I would say 75% of what happens in the book is real, happened according to history. I made a few changes. Like in the real story of the rape trial, there were actually 3 men accused. It was too many. It was untenable for the book. So I just wrote one of them out altogether. And then I killed the other guy at the beginning. So that was just a literary choice that would help me manage it. But other than that, it was building the things that I knew and then filling in the gaps. For instance, I knew that Martha had been married for 35 years. I knew that she'd had 9 children. I didn't know what the relationships were, so I had to build that. I had to create it and weave it into what we already know happened in history.
Now, you mentioned the 9 children. There's so much about motherhood in this novel, the pains, the joys, the absolute fathomless love that we have for our children. And you write with such deep feeling here. And this quote from the book: like all mothers, I have long since mastered the art of nursing joy at one breast and grief at the other, which I think is really profound. So as a mother of 4 sons yourself, there must be some of you in those thoughts and those feelings about motherhood in this novel, about boys turning into men and about loss as they grow into their own people. Can you talk a little bit about how your own experience of motherhood has imprinted itself in the novel a little bit, or maybe it hasn't? Can you talk a little bit about
that's
that?
a great question. And it absolutely has. Any of those passages that you read, it's me working through the process of hitting the stage of motherhood where my children are leaving. And that's really where Martha is in this book. Her children are older. She doesn't have babies anymore. She either has grown children or children that are leaving the nest. And I opened the vein and spilled it on the page. And I always tell people that that's the most terrifying part of writing. If you ever want to know what a writer believes, if you want to know their worldview, if you want to know what they value, what they're afraid of, all you have to do is read something they've written, because it's there. We can't hide it. We spill it onto the page. And it can be really freeing, but it can also feel really vulnerable. And sometimes I will flip back to one of those passages and go, oh God, I put that in print.
I put that bad day with my oldest in print.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's those those books where we open our veins the most, that strike a chord, that strike the deepest chord with people. So just hearing you talk about it now, I can understand why it's having the reception out in the world that it is, why so many people are reacting so strongly to it. Also talking about things that are personal pieces of us in the novel. Martha's marriage is so kind and so loving and so sweet, yet she's no wilting flower.
Right.
And he's the one tough man who's tender to her. So I know you've said that your own marriage was the inspiration for this marriage. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel very strongly that we don't see enough good marriages in print. We just
point.
don't. And I think it's because a bad marriage is easier to write. All of the tension is there. It's inherent. It's easier. If you're writing about a good marriage, all of the tension and trouble has to come from elsewhere in the story.
Good point.
But the true story of Martha Ballard is that she was 54 years old when all of this happened. She'd been married for 35 years. And I thought, that's fun to write about. Here's a woman who has seen some stuff. She has lived a lot. There is a lot of life under her belt. And fiction seems to be primarily populated sort of by the young, buxom blonde in her 20s and 30s. But I wanted to write a character that reflected more of where I am, which is midlife, a mature woman who's got decades of marriage under her belt, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the hard things, who's seen grief, who has lost children. Martha Ballard had 9 children and she lost 3 of them. And the story opens and she's got 6 of them left. And I've never lost a child like that, but I have had a miscarriage. I understand a little tiny bit of what it means to know there would have been a person here that is not here. And to explore all of that in the context of a wider, bigger story, a murder mystery that has consequences for Martha's family, was really fun.
Which brings me to say, I feel that more than any book I've read of yours, and I've read them all, The Frozen River, I hear you. I hear your voice. You know, we have conversations about kids and grown sons and the tribulations. And I've heard your deep feelings and they're in this book.
Yeah.
So do you feel this, or am I projecting this amazing woman right onto you?
I mean, I hope there's some of me in there. I really do think I drew heavily from my mom and from my sister. So it's all of us.
It's all
maybe. It's all of us, but that's also true.
Yeah.
I don't know how my kids would feel hearing this, but they're not going to listen, so it's fine. I could not have written this book until my children had broken me.
Yeah.
You don't know what I'm talking about. It means your kids haven't broken you yet.
Yep.
You'll survive. Everything will be fine. But there is this really fascinating thing that happens, particularly raising boys when they reach this certain age and they separate. And that separation creates, it creates this tearing and this tension. And it's so important and it's so necessary. But what it does to your mother heart is profound and hard and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was living all of that as I was writing this. And I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have done that 15 years ago when I first found this story. They were still sweet and precious.
And you were pregnant with one of them.
Yes. And now they're big and smelly and in college and high school.
My sister-in-law says it's like a boy breaking up with you, like
incrementally.
So slowly.
Yes. Yes.
I saw a meme today that said, texting your grown son is like texting a boy in high school who doesn't want to answer you. Are you there?
The willpower it took to not screenshot that and send it to every one of my kids.
I saw it today. I sent it to my son.
I deserve a ticker tape parade for not.
Yeah.
The answers are like K, THX,
and you're like, this is so
later, can't talk.
I had a kid recently yell at me because I used punctuation when I texted him. And he's like, why are you mad? Why are you mad every time you text me? And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, every time you text me, you use punctuation.
Oh my God.
You know what I do for a living? Like, did you just get here? Are you paying attention? I
Oh my
can't
gosh.
not use punctuation. He's like, "Don't get
Right.
mad at me."
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple reader comments because I think they're great. Ellen Lucy says she is from Maine, near Hollowell. And
Oh.
so she has to go get this book. A lot of people have questions about the journal. Have you ever, how did her journal survive? That's from Michelle Marcus. Would you want someone to read your journal 100 years from now? I think there's a difference between a journal and a diary. My journals have to be burned.
I'll answer
Yeah.
the second question first. I will burn it all.
That's what me too.
Like nothing stays.
Nothing.
Nobody gets to know. Like I might burn it next week just on principle. Because I do keep diaries, but they're for me.
Yep. See, I think there's a difference between a diary and a journal. Like a diary is a daily.
Yeah.
I journal.
This actually, I don't know if you're familiar with a day book. A day book is like the date and the time and very short. There's, like I said, there's not a lot of emotion here. So we call it a diary. It really is more of a day book.
Okay.
So no, absolutely not. No one ever gets to read them. They die with me.
Ditto.
Hers survived, however, because when Martha passed, one of her daughters collected them and kept them and then gave them to her daughter, who gave them to her daughter. And they went through several generations of Martha's family until they ended up at the Maine State Library, which is where they are today.
Oh, that's awesome.
Interesting.
Because somebody saw them and went, oh, that's a valuable record of that time and of what happened in this town. So thankfully they were not chucked into the rubbish or into a fire like they could have been.
Wow.
Yeah, not surprising that it was all daughters that saved them.
Right. Well,
Good points.
Like if you look at Martha's family tree, you'll see that she's the great aunt of Clara Barton, founder of the American Red Cross, and she's the great great grandmother of Mary Hobart, who was one of the first female physicians in the United States. So if nothing else, the women in her family valued the medical legacy that she kept, and they could look at this as a textbook, if nothing else, for how to perform certain procedures.
So interesting.
And how to be a woman in an inhospitable world and still practice the healing arts.
Yeah.
Even if other people were saying, yeah, I don't think so.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, Ariel. Okay, we have one last question for Ariel. But first, we want to remind all of you out there to head over to friendsandfiction.com to find out more about our podcast and our newsletter. So Ariel has this amazing Q&A in our newsletter this week. And if you're not signed up, you miss all of that. And subscribing is totally free. So make sure you're signed up for both at friendsandfiction.com. So Ariel, before we let you go, I have been reading your Substack newsletter. And I love it, especially the one about Ireland. I read it like 3 times because you had like the things you learned while traveling with friends in Ireland. And it's so good. But you also give really good writing advice on your Substack. So can you tell our viewers where to find your Substack and how to find you on the road and online in the coming weeks while this book explodes into the world?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for mentioning that. As Patti mentioned, I did start a Substack earlier this year. I miss writing in longer form. I miss blogging. And I also wanted a place where I could teach everything that I know about writing. So I am going through a writing series as I work on my new novel. And you can go to ariellawhon.substack.com to subscribe. And I have all kinds of stuff on there. Some of them are personal essays. There are short stories. There are general interest essays, and then also my writing series. And that has been really, really fun. I'm also everywhere on social media, but really the only one that I actively use is Instagram. And so it's at ariel.lawhon. And I would love to chat.
And you're going to be on the road too.
I am. I will be, next week, I will be at Page and Palette. I will be at A Likely Story. I will be at M. Judson and Litchfield and Pelican Books. That is my December leg of the tour. And I've posted all of those on Instagram tonight. So if you want to go find me, you can see exactly where I'll be. And then in January, I have leg 2 of the tour.
And we'll be together in Huntsville.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. Oh, Ariel, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
This
you.
is an astounding novel, and we're so thrilled for our community to find out about it and go grab it. So thank you for being with us.
Good luck on the
Thank
road.
you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a
So
pleasure.
glad to.
All right, everybody. Don't forget, you can find all of our back episodes on YouTube or rewatch this one because it was so interesting. We will be back next week to welcome #1 New York Times bestselling phenom Tessa Bailey to discuss her steamy new, weird to say steamy and rom-com and Christmas in the same sentence, but I just did. Steamy new Christmas rom-com called Wreck the Halls. So don't miss it. And also, don't go anywhere because we have an after show in about 20 seconds. But next week, we have a fun episode in store for you, and we can't wait. So thank you for being with us tonight. We are always honored. And everybody have a wonderful week, and see you in a couple seconds.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.
Oh, hey, you guys.
Hey,
Yay.
that was great. I loved her.
She's awesome. Isn't it weird how, and I bet every one of us could say this, there's a novel that we couldn't have written until we wrote it.
Yeah.
Do you have one, Kathy? Mary Kay?
We'll see.
No, but do you ever feel like there's a novel you wrote that you would have said, I couldn't have written that before?
Yeah, I mean, High Tide Club, which had a dual timeline, a little bit of historic fiction. I could not have written that earlier in my career, and I almost couldn't write it when I did write it. It almost killed me.
Yeah. How about you, Kristin? Did you ever have that happen? Like you were
Yeah.
like,
It was probably The Sweetness of Forgetting, which was my 2012 book, and it was my transition into historical fiction. I couldn't have done that any earlier than I did. I think I needed to develop as a writer, but more kind of like Ariel said, I needed to develop as a person. Like I think she was talking about how she needed to go through things as a mother to sort of be able to understand that, and I needed to be a different, older, more mature human being, if that makes
before
sense.
you wrote that.
Yep.
Yeah. How about you, Kristy?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have written Dear Carolina without being a mother for sure. I mean, that was like one of those like lightning bolt kind of stories for me. And then I definitely couldn't have written The Wedding Veil if I hadn't written a lot of other things before, just because, I mean, one, the confidence of feeling like you could put together a story, you know, about someone else's life. And then, and I mean, and honestly, you guys were like, write the book. You're writing the book. Quit making excuses. Write the book.
If you're scared, write it double. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Patti?
I could never. Well, what's fascinating is there's no way I could have written Becoming Mrs. Lewis, which I consider kind of the book where I switched gears and really put more of myself into it than any of my others. But also what happened was the box of her poetry had been found. And if I had tried to write that book, say 10 years before, or even 8 years before, I wouldn't have had the 54 love sonnets she wrote to C.S. Lewis. Like I wouldn't have had, and that guided the whole book.
Yeah.
So I think there's just books that have a right time. And I bet Ariel would say that being locked down changed that book too, because Martha lived in a very locked down world that winter. So
yeah.
All right. How was Thanksgiving for everyone? Was it awesome?
It was good.
Yeah.
Tell us what you did, Kristin, because you saw some friends and went to Universal.
Oh yeah, I mean we're always going to the Disney parks. My friend Kristin was here in town, which was very nice.
Awesome.
We love her.
Yeah, I know. She's so great. You guys all know her. So she was here with her mom and her two boys, who are like my nephews. I mean, I've known them both since I'm the godmother to one of them. They're just I love them all so much. So that was great. She left this morning, and I feel heartbroken that she's gone. But it was wonderful. Yep.
That's awesome. How about you, Mary Kay?
We had 16 or 17 for Thanksgiving dinner. It's a
If you're
blur.
not sure if it's 16 or 17.
Well, we were
Did someone come and go? Just
16 and a half.
expecting 18 and we had a no-show, which is not unusual. There's always that relative who you invite and they never say. They say they're coming, but you really
Yeah.
kind of halfway know they're not coming. We had the great the gravy debate of 2023, where my nephew boldly declared that his gravy maybe was better, but
How dare he?
I know. So, but he is a good cook, and he does always bring the homemade yeast rolls. So I decided not to stab him.
We're glad you
I
didn't. We're glad.
I think that's a real opportunity to say, fantastic. Next year, you can bring the yeast rolls and the gravy.
It could happen. Well, Christmas is still coming up, so maybe I'll give him a shot.
And the turkey and the stuffing and the wine.
Exactly.
All the wine.
All the way.
You can come set the table too and vacuum a little.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do the dishes.
We had a great time. We've had both sides of the family for like a year. I mean, since Will and I got married, which is really funny. But we have the opposite. We always have people that say they're not going to come, and they always do. That I just like set a couple extra places at the table because when you have like food or whatever, when you're ready for 13 and 15 come, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Better to have leftovers than not enough.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, no, we love it. We have so much fun. And my nephews are like right on either side of Will, and they just have the best time, and it's just great. It's
I
fun.
know. It always
What
goes so
about you,
fast.
Patti? Where were you? Were you in Palmetto?
I was in South Carolina, and we had 13. And I know how many. Like, I wasn't sure.
I asked that like I didn't know. Where were you, Patti?
I had 13, and most of them stayed with me, and we had an absolute blast. We just ate and enjoyed each other, and I think with y'all too, the weather was just so cooperative and beautiful, and we played a rousing game of charades and made idiots of ourselves, and I don't know. It was one of the nicest Thanksgivings. There was no real drama, and I was missing 2 of my kids, which was really sad. One, my son, Thomas, is engaged. And so he spent Christmas with his fiance's family, and we get them for Christmas. He spent Thanksgiving with his fiance's family, and we get him for Christmas. And then, of course, I just left Megan in Hawaii, so she wasn't there. But
now maybe we know the source of the drama.
I know, really? I know, exactly. Or we all just got older and everybody's just. So Meg just posted that Sue Johnson Bishop is asking Kristy if you watched the Biltmore Estates movie on Hallmark last weekend. She said it was kind of magical and she really enjoyed it.
I have not. I'm boycotting it because they should have made the wedding veil.
Exactly. There you go.
I'm just kidding. I love Hallmark movies and I cannot wait to watch it. And a bunch of people have texted me and told me that it was like really, really good. So if I don't get to it this week, I'll definitely watch it this weekend. I'm very excited. I'm very excited just because I feel like I spent a lot of like really in-depth time there, and just to kind of get to see, like, I have to tell y'all though, it shocks me that they let them film a movie there.
I know.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
stunned by that. Like, I am stunned. So anyway, I mean,
Agreed.
it's going to be great though. And to like let people into the world of Biltmore who will never get to visit it otherwise is really, really cool.
That is really cool.
And Kathy, Mary Kay, I know that your house has thrown up plaid and tinsel and Christmas. I mean, it is decorated for, I feel like you should have at least 4 Christmas parties the way your house is decorated.
Well, we're having 2.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Halfway there.
My book club Christmas party is always at my house. So that gives me a deadline to get it decorated.
Okay.
And then we're going to have a special thing for a friend and it will be a surprise. But yeah, supposedly the AJC is doing a story about Mary Kay Andrews' house at Christmas. And so the reporter came and we spent 5 days fluffing and cleaning. Oh my God, y'all, I vacuumed lampshades
That's amazing.
with my little, handheld back.
That's
And
impressive.
because, I'm not a big house cleaner person, Tom had to show me how to use a new vacuum cleaner.
Oh my God, that's
But
so
the photographer
awesome.
didn't come. The photographer didn't come with the reporter. So I got to keep this dump clean until the photographer shows up.
Yeah, that was all I could think about when you said that. When everyone's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
but the reporter got to see it," I'm like, "She has to clean that house up all over again. What are y'all talking about?"
Well, we
It's like
will
you
not
would
be.
study for an exam, and you would go to class, and they would say, "Oh, we've moved the exam till next week." And you would
Yeah.
go, "Shoo," and I would be like, "I've already studied, and I'm going to forget all of it by next week."
Yeah.
Yep, it's all going to
there
fall
again.
out of my brain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so this
Mary Kay,
weekend-
you are a grand marshal this weekend.
I am in Cashiers, North Carolina for their Christmas parade Saturday, during which it is a 90% chance of rain. So there's that.
Yikes.
You're going to have so much fun, and Meg gets to go with you. So
Meg and
Well,
her
we're gonna
husband
hope you're
Dave
the
are coming
10%.
down. What?
We're going to hope you're in the 10%.
That's
Yep.
right. It's possible. Maybe it won't rain all day anyways. You know what I mean? Maybe it won't rain at parade time.
We'll have delightful dinners out. Patti, I got to get some suggestions for restaurants.
okay.
And I'm practicing my wave. I'm trying not to. I don't want the regal. I want
just like
relatable.
Hey, y'all! I just threw candy at everybody because I felt dumb waving.
Oh, okay.
Well, people like candy. That's good. That's a good.
It made
plan.
me a very popular float in Little Will Road, and that was really fun too. So if you have maybe Meg can ride with you.
Could you do this? Or does that look like you're saying get away? Like, go.
I think you need to be.
I think it's like this. Hi, y'all.
Oh, there you go. Hi. That's like a
You
prom
can do a
queen
double
wave.
wave.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
Jazz hands. Jazz
It's
hands.
supposed to rain here too, and it's not. It's our flotilla, and it's not good timing because we're having a flotilla party, but we're putting. I think we're going to put tents up in the yard before we leave for Raleigh. So if it rains, it'll still be dry.
somewhere to
Can I
sit.
put a plug in for my last event of 2023?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, if anybody out there is in the area, I'm going to be at the North Carolina State Fairgrounds in Raleigh on Friday from 3 to 7 with the Junior League of Raleigh and Quail Ridge Books at their shopping spree. It's so fun if you've never been there. It's like Christmas mayhem in the best possible way, and you can get like all of your shopping done like that. But anyway, you can't buy a happier life yet, but you
could
can buy
probably
my other book.
pre-order it.
And it's gonna be
You
so
can
fun. My
totally
part-
pre-order
it's like
it.
a cocktail party, and there's food, and there's wine, and all the good stuff. So come see me if you're in the area.
Awesome.
You want to
Okay,
know what to give Kristy for Christmas? A pre-order.
There you go.
All right, you guys. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go eat dinner. I am so happy to see everyone's faces. So next week, everybody out there, don't forget Tessa Bailey will be here with 4 words I rarely put together, her steamy new Christmas rom-com. So,
Hey, wait, I have something to ask. I was thinking, for our Christmas office party,
yeah,
are we going to do the ugly Christmas sweaters again?
we should. Or ugly
Good,
Christmas
yeah.
headgear. Maybe everybody could vote in the thing. Do we want...
Yes, you guys vote.
I think we should also ask people to post pictures of themselves on the page in their ugly Christmas sweaters.
Great idea.
Great
yeah,
idea.
for sure.
And
Oh,
Meg
and
said
Meg-
to remind you to plug your Adriana event.
Yes, I am doing a virtual event Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern with Adriana Trigiani at barnesandnoble.com. You do have to pre-register ahead of time to get the link, but it's free, and everyone should come and watch and buy books.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
For sure.
Okay, now they want both sweaters and headgear.
I mean,
no, you got to pick one or the other.
Why can't we
Headgear
have both?
seems to be winning.
wait, both. People are changing their votes to both.
I know. I said
Yeah, all
either
right.
or. I didn't
I'm in.
say.
Patty, do you
I
know
know.
where your ugly Christmas sweater is since you've just moved back home?
No, I don't know where anything is. Pat's like, where's the can opener? Where's the peeler? I'm like, I don't. No,
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I got through 60 of 120 boxes, so I have more to go.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Oh, God.
no.
But I think what's good about it is it's a good time of year to do that. It's calm. There's not a lot going on.
Right.
No,
You
no,
like it
it's
at
just like
home.
releasing
Yeah.
a book.
Go
It's a
through
great
boxes.
time.
Absolutely.
Have you
Why not?
explained to Pat the very real medical disorder called male pattern blindness?
Yes, yes. Where's the dog food? Your hand is on it. That's where it is.
Where's the dog? Right under you. Literally.
Oh my God. Okay, we've gone over, and Egg says we're going off the rails. So,
Okay.
good night, everyone. Love you sadly.